Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
It's been quite a week for President Trump, with news that a former senior aide wants immunity to testify about his ties with Russia. And that begs the question, could this bring down the president? Watergate toppled President Nixon. Back then, the key witness was the high-ranking legal aide John Dean, who opened up to get a good deal from prosecutors. Sounds familiar? We'll be hearing from him in a moment. But first, here's a reminder of the scandal that took down a president.
Watergate was the mother of all political scandals. Dirty tricks, spying and subterfuge, intended to bring down Nixon's opponents. Eventually, it brought down the president.
I welcome this kind of examination because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
The most famous burglary in American political history happened on the night of June the 17th, 1972. Nixon never ordered the break-in at the Watergate complex, but he colluded in the cover-up.
At one point in the conversation, I recall the president telling me to keep a good list of the press people giving us trouble because we will make life difficult for them after the election. The conversation then turned to the use of the Internal Revenue Service to attack our enemies.
John Dean says he discussed Watergate with Nixon at least 35 times. When Republicans told the president that they would vote for impeachment, he quit.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
Well, the nightmares continue. Unfortunately, he has not shown that he has any capability to really be president, doesn't show he has any knowledge of the office, doesn't show any disposition to study and try to learn about the office, and he's been very slow in filling it up with positions of people who actually know what they're doing.
Now, of course, you were at the heart of the White House during the Nixon administration and also the Watergate scandal. In his short time as president so far, can you see any similarities between the Donald Trump White House and what you experienced?
Well, I do. That's been one of the troubling things. What's happened is because of the change in the media post-Watergate, where they really don't give the president the benefit of the doubt anymore, plus the speed with which the media transmits information today because of the internet and just the technology in general, we see something happening that took over months in Watergate happening very quickly now. And that is a real distrust settling in about the president. And people are asking over here, what did the president know and when did he know it? Primarily regarding his knowledge in dealing with the Russians.
And you talked there about the relationship with the media. What do you make of the remarks that Donald Trump has made about the media, talking about fake news, for example?
Well, it's not only fake news where he discredits stories he doesn't like. He's called the media the enemy of the American people, which is pretty stunning coming out of the White House. Our First Amendment to our Constitution guarantees Americans freedom of the press. And this is just diametrically opposed to any notion of freedom of the press. He doesn't seem to appreciate that. So again, this is either naivete or he has an agenda that we don't really understand yet.
And since Watergate, people have really pored over the character of President Nixon, including his paranoia. You knew him. Do you see any similarities with the personality traits of Donald Trump?
Well, they are similar in a couple of regards. We wouldn't know Nixon's full personality but for the secret tapes he made of his presidency, which include hundreds and hundreds of hours of Nixon being Nixon, where he seems to forget the taping machine is running. I had some 37 meetings with Nixon, not a whole lot, and I didn't really see that full personality. But anyway, the point I'm getting to, the similarities and differences, is that Nixon was clearly an authoritarian personality. Donald Trump is clearly an authoritarian personality. Nixon, however, was only that way behind closed doors, whereas Donald Trump is just right out front about his authoritarianism.
Donald Trump has always been very open about the kind of man he is. He's always tweeted these slightly controversial things. He's always been very open in the kind of policies he wants to implement when he's in the White House. So isn't he just giving voters what they want?
Well, as I see it, about maybe half the population right now isn't sure whether he is insane or if he's just a totally angry man. They don't know what he's doing. About 40% seem to be happy with him and approve of his job, and then another maybe 10% are pretty confused about what's going on or don't care. So it's very strange over here now, and we've never had a president like this, and that's why I have nightmares.
Do you think he could be impeached?
Well, there isn't a movement afoot already to try to impeach him. I think it's too early. It's not likely it'll happen when the Republican Party controls both houses of our Congress, and it takes a bill of impeachment approved by a majority of the House of Representatives and a two-thirds vote in the Senate to find guilty under that charges by the House. Both of those bodies are controlled by Republicans at this point, and as long as that's the case and that Trump is giving them what they want, approving their legislation, they're not likely to do anything. They'll stay out of his way and he'll stay out of their way, and each do their own thing. So I don't see impeachment as likely.
You've said in the past that a Donald Trump presidency will be a disaster. Do you still stand by that comment?
Well, certainly I do stand by it from all early indications. I wish it were otherwise. I wish I could say he surprised us all. In fact, he has never pivoted, as they talked about during the campaign, to show the slightest sign of being presidential. If he makes it 3 or 4 minutes through his teleprompter without going off on something else, it's always a little bit surprising. It seems like he has attention deficit disorder and can't really stay very focused very long on anything. So I see it as an unfolding disaster at this point. I'm kind of happy every day when I wake up and he hasn't blown up part of the world.
I've been